How's it going, Reef Keepers? Hope you guys are having a good start to your week. So, I'm trying to bring critical thought and skepticism more into my videos to try to, and instead of just, doing so much calling out of people or companies or whatever, I kind of want to just delve into some of the inner workings of like how misinformation is created and spread, right? Like, it's not that I'm going to get away from calling out, you know, companies and stuff that do shady stuff, but I kind of want to also just show like how they're doing it, all the intricacies of it, right? And one of the best areas to kind of spotlight with regards to misinformation in this hobby and how it is spread is when it comes to backup batteries, right? So this is my EcoFlow River 2 Max. I've also got the EcoFlow River 2 base unit on my nano tank. And as you guys know, if you have listened to any of my channel in the past, you probably have seen me go over how those backup battery units for an incredible price point, like for the base unit, 119 bucks on eBay right now. They've got lithium iron phosphate in them, which will last you like 8 to 10 years with regular cycling. They have solar hookups, they've got screens, they've got a wicked app that goes with it. They have AC hookup, they have DC hookup so that you don't have to do a conversion. They have the ability to cool themselves with fans, they're lightweight, they're sleek, blah, 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 blah. I'll just go on forever. And I have gone on forever. You can watch videos on it. They are undoubtedly a vastly superior value to reef industry backup battery options, to my knowledge, none of which run on lithium iron phosphate or LFP battery technology. They all run on antiquated lead acid battery technology. And as I've talked about before, within like 2 years, the capacity of a lead acid battery has been precipitously degraded, right? So, I want to kind of talk about how these sponsored reefers, these sponsored influencers go about pushing this stuff and convincing people to buy a way worse battery option, like let's say the flagship model that the reef industry has, the Ecotech Marine backup battery. This is how they kind of go about it. And it's hard, by the way, before I get rolling, it's hard to know how much of it is done out of ignorance. They don't have a full understanding of the technology anyway. They're just given something and they're going to hawk it no matter what. Or is it more sinister? Do they know more about the alternative options? Are they fully aware of alternative options? And they're just pushing this stuff on you anyway because they get a commission off each unit they sell. By the way, 100% true. They get commission from every one of those units they sell. And if you click that link on whatever post they make, boom, they get commission. Two, they also are just going to keep getting free gear, right? And free tanks and free whatever, which many of them started out being into it for that. And the commission is just, icing on the cake. So what I see a lot of is pushing. Like, we'll keep using our flagship, the Ecotech Marine backup battery. But no exploration, of course, probably unsurprisingly so, of any of its drawbacks or any of the realities of, how weak that capacity is going to be in 2-3 years, or any acknowledgement of competition, right? That's like baseline. And that in and of itself bothers me, right? But these people have an acute understanding, and these companies that support them have an acute understanding of the fact that people, by and large, just want answers. They just want a solution. They just want to look at somebody with a tank full of coral and fish who they then associate as a guru in the hobby automatically. And they want that guru to say, buy the Ecotech battery backup. Okay, take my $215, says most people who respect that guru based on what they can see in the person's tank, right? How cool their Instagram shorts are, how many YouTube videos they put out, so that they can keep themselves entertained, whatever. And that's a dangerously critical thought devoid place to live. And I would push anyone who subscribes to any of what I'm about to resist falling down that rabbit hole, right? Because that's a dangerous place to exist. However, what is the more bothersome thing to me about this is that these people, when their ecotech, I started thinking about it, when their ecotech marine battery backup in 3 years is a shell of what it was formerly capable of, and that lead acid battery is getting close to depletion, what do they do in that case? And then it became clear, because it's obvious, they just ask Aperture for a new one, right? And Aperture says, sure, no problem. It'll go out this afternoon. And then they quietly install that on their tank. We're not going to get a post about, oh, installing the very same battery backup again 2.5, 3 years later. We're not going to get that post. They're just going to do it, and you'll never know the difference. It looks just the same as the old unit, right? And they'll keep pushing that unit on you. Even though if you want decent capacity in your battery backup, you would have to replace that Ecotech Marine battery backup every couple years if you want to maintain good capacity. Or you have to pry apart the horrible metal housing and buy a $40 wheelchair battery and cram it in there and try to put it all back together, which nobody's going to do, right? So that aspect of it, where a way worse value, way less capable product is pushed as gold standard, and then when theirs dies after a couple years, doesn't die, but it just depletes out until, they got a tank full of beautiful coral and fish, and just like anybody else, they want a good product running it. They know that product is only really good. To be fair, it's not even that good, but they know it's only good capacity-wise for a couple of years. And so then they just ask for a new one in their latest round of gear coming from daddy. And it's like, oh, okay. See what's going on there? That to me, that is very dark to me. That's pretty blatantly wrong to just, I use, and by the way, what they say, if you challenge them on this is, well, it just works. I use it and it just works. It's what I use. Yeah, of course it's what you use. You get a free one every 2 or 3 years. Everybody else who's listening to you, thousands of reef keepers, are paying $215 every couple years like clockwork. And that's if they even understand how quickly that battery degrades. Because no way would that sponsored reefer talk about that aspect of it. People wouldn't buy it then. They wouldn't get commission then. They might get a call from Daddy Aperture in Minnesota. That won't fly. Interesting, right? So the selective withholding of information, right? And siloing out of reality. That is one angle that they play. They're not going to tell you that they replace theirs every 3 years. They are not going to tell you about how fast things degrade. They're not going to tell you about alternatives and shortcomings. They're just not going to tell you. They're just going to push, and get that commission, right? And keep getting free stuff. So that's one dark angle of this. But another angle that bothers me, and again, I'm not going to say names, right? But it was a video that was recently put out by a sponsored reefer about a lithium iron phosphate backup battery this time, okay? So it's just a battery pack. It doesn't look like this. It is just a bare bones rectangle that does have app connectivity to it. So it's got an app that shows how much is, remaining on the capacity and, what's being drawn off it or whatever. But a more basic in appearance product than this. So they go through it. It's high capacity, etc., etc. And then interestingly, remember, this person was sponsored by the company that sent them this battery. Interestingly, they addressed EcoFlow, right? And they said that EcoFlow is not an option they would use because of the required conversion from AC to DC. I'll say it again. Because of the required conversion from AC to DC and the loss due to that conversion in capacity. AC, DC. If you want to use DC on an EcoFlow, on any River 2 model, it's right there. Okay? So, this is another interesting tactic. And I try to understand. I'm like, okay, this individual may be talking out of their rear end. They don't really have that much familiarity with EcoFlow, but they've heard the name because it is getting pretty popular in the reef keeping hobby, right? By the way, there's a million like EcoFlow style units that you can get. EcoFlow is just the one that, more, backup plan, emergency power plan people have delved into. So I think it's probably the most popular LFP option right now. But it's so interesting that this sponsored reefer with some other, no-name company LFP battery that they're hawking, that they got for free, that they're going to probably get commission off sales for. That person is trying to tell people that EcoFlow units can't do DC. You have to do a conversion. So it's one of two things. Either they don't know what they're talking about. They're unfamiliar with the product and they shouldn't be talking about it, but they are, right? Or they're very familiar with EcoFlow's capabilities. They're very aware, at least, even if they've never used one themselves. And they're trying to slyly sow some misinformation out there to try to steer you toward the product that they are going to get commission on, who is going to give them more free products in the future for their backup solutions, right? So these little bits, I see this more and more, and oftentimes it's like a quick thing said near the end of a video, or a mumble, or a backwards comment, or whatever, or backhanded comment. Just some little, I wouldn't do that because of this. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. What did you say? Because that's not accurate. However, it should be understood by these people. And it's so interesting to me. It seems like some of them take it personally when people question them or come at them for their statements. They should understand that when they start accepting free tanks, free gear, free this, free that, rolling in commission dollars on items that are being sold through clicks or through codes that you use from their channels. When you start doing that, the skeptical people in this hobby are going to question you. You're going to be microscoped, for sure. You exist under the microscope from skeptical reefers in perpetuity now, right? So it's always interesting to me when those people get upset or start to fight on social media or get their feelings hurt. It's like, guys, you're getting all this for free and you're pushing it on thousands and thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, depending on the channel, of reefers who don't know any better, who are desperately looking for a solution because this hobby is incredibly hard and they're trusting you. And if you get called on some stuff, you shouldn't really be that surprised, right? Or if someone sheds light where you didn't do your homework properly enough, you shouldn't be surprised. That's what's gonna happen. And again, like I said, it's hard to know how much misinformation in the hobby from sponsored reefers is born of ignorance and how much of it is born out of a more, something more sinister going on, right? A more premeditated campaign to sow misinformation and redirect focus and dollars toward their chosen and toward their sponsored products, right? The companies that they are sponsored by and the product lines that they receive through sponsorship. It's very interesting to me. So I'm always kind of I always kind of have an eye out, kind of always have an ear to the ground, and I I try to kind of observe their tactics and figure out how they're doing this stuff. And this is one of my first videos that I've done on, like, let's look at the tactics of how they sow some of this misinformation, or what they're leaving out and why. But I want to get more into this, like, critical thought, skepticism, doubt, and really, get more into, like, how it takes shape and takes root and is sown in the hobby. It's very interesting to me. So, anyhow, just so you guys are aware, keep your eyes open, right? Be skeptical. Ask questions always. You're never wrong for doing that.